Oh, hi everyone. Back again for more adventures into the past. What I'm reading here and what I'm looking at, and I'll show it to you also, this is actually a citizenship paper from my great grandfather who come from Germany and who was a naturalized citizen of the United States in 1899. And he was so proud to come over here and have, to get out of Germany. He brought his family with him. Later, he went back to Germany when Hitler was in power, and then Hitler would not let him come back over. It's so sad because we never knew for sure whatever happened to him. And so today what we're going to talk about is how did Hitler fundamentally change Germany in only 21 years. At the end of World War I, which was 1918, until 1939, September 1st, 21 years. And so Hitler had an 8-point plan in order to do what he did. And let's go through these points real quick, real fast, and how he did it. First of all, Hitler became the leader of a fringe group known as the Socialist Party. Then later, it became the Nazi Party. And he was the leader, and it was a hate group. And if you crossed them, they did terrible things to you, to say the least. And probably the first thing he did, one of the big major things he did a lot, but he would create crisis. He would go out and eliminate his opponents, number one. Number two, he would even finagle the government building to be burnt down called the Reichstag, and that was in 1933. And that's when things started happening real quick, real fast, and that's when he came into power. By burning down the government building, he was able to become the dictator by finagling and finagling. What happened was, by the Empowerment Act from the German General Assembly, he was the assistant chancellor, and then afterward he appointed himself basically to be the number one person, called the Führer, the dictator, the supreme commander of Germany. And then from that point on, after he seized all the power for himself, and then he centralized the government so that everything he did and his close cabinet members would send out government doctrines for the whole nation to follow. So that was number one, centralization of government power, and he created a crisis in order to attain that power. And then after that, he had his hate group, and they were the Jews. After the end of World War I, the Jews only made up 1% of the people out of 60 million, but they were very, very advanced in engineering, literature, agriculture, business, anything as a general rule that the Jews was into, they excelled. And I believe personally that he was just very jealous of them, knowing that that group of people as a small group could always excel so much at anything they did. Another thing one of his doctrines was cancel culture of Germany at that time. Anything that would remind the people, like statues, books that did not go along with his ideology, anyone that went against him, books, it could be a play, for example, or the newspaper saying something that did not meet the guidelines. Also, it controlled the news media, and that was responsibility of Hermann Goebbels in 1933. He was the director of propaganda. This included everything that when the newspaper, the radio, literature of any sort that the people would read or see or go to, or even plays that they would go to. Even the plays would always cast the Jewish people in a terrible light, for example. Something else that Hitler did was he certainly wanted to disarm his people. One of Hitler's famous quotes was, "In order to conquer a country, you must disarm its citizens first." And I have an old German Mauser here that many years ago I actually bought at a garage sale for $5. I've never shot it. Don't have any intention to. To me, it's just a wall hanger, but it's just an heirloom piece from the past. So I'm so glad here in America that we have the Second Amendment where we can actually have arms like this, and we can keep them just for keepsakes. This old gun even actually has a swastika on it that was on it. And you can see the advanced German technology of the bolt action, which back in those days was really good. Very, very, very dependable, a good weapon of war. And today it wouldn't be much of a weapon, but back then it was. The sights and the wood and everything was well built. And this gun was, who knows, this gun may have seen some action against American troops. You just never, never, never know where it came from. But anyway, I'm pretty proud of it because it represents heritage and heirloom piece of something from the past from my family history. Then we talk about the churches. What did Hitler do with the churches? Well, he told the churches, including the Catholic Church and the Vatican, and you know when World War II started, Italy was part of the Axis part. So they joined Germany in fighting the Allies. And he didn't bother them. Hitler could have went through there and destroyed every church, any place, anywhere if he'd wanted to. But he did not choose to do that. He simply told the churches this: do not ever talk so-called politics in your pulpit. Don't say anything bad about us. You support us. If you can't say something good, don't say nothing. And a good illustration was, the trains would load up the Jewish people from other places and they would run them to the concentration camps. And a lot of the churches was right along the tracks. And so when the people was in church services, they could hear the trains going by and they knew they was full of people and they was wailing and crying and all this horrible sounds that they was making because they was in such misery and pain. And the church leaders would say, as the trains would go by, sing a little louder, sing a little louder. So if you're going to a good government church, if your church leader says we don't talk politics, so you're going to the right place, because that way you'll never get in trouble by doing that. And so that is the reason why most of the pastors was never rounded up. Now there was a few pastors who did, and they got rounded up and they met their demise in the concentration camps very quickly. Another thing to do is through centralization of government power. You want to consolidate all the power. And for example, when it comes to telling the people what to do and how to do something, it came from one source only. There were no states' rights, or counties did not elect their own officials and like we do in America. No, you do not do that. Everything come from the centralized government source, and that was Adolf Hitler himself and his cronies who surrounded him. So also another huge factor to do is indoctrination of children. And there was another dictator at the very same time, and that was Joseph Stalin of Russia at the very same time. He said, give me a kid just 2 or 3 years and I've got him for life. Well, him and Hitler both was paralleling each other. They're both ruthless dictators, and they knew how important it was to indoctrinate the children, and they did a wonderful job. So let's be real. In order for them to get government funding, they have to jump through certain hoops. You got to do this, and got to do this, and got to do this, and got to do this. And it's just teaching the official government policy to the kids and a certain narrative that they hear over and over and over and over again. And I guarantee you, 95% of those kids are going to grow up thinking exactly what they've been taught. And that's what they're going to believe, because that's all they've ever heard. And so let's go ahead and go back through this one more time. The 8 points was, you got to control the news media. You have to establish a hate group, indoctrination of children, and also control the narrative of the churches. You need to have cancel culture. in which you destroy statues and anything else that would remind people of the past that you do not want them to hear anymore. And of course, number 6 would be centralization of government power. That's very important. You don't want, like in the United States, you don't want the Hitler, if he was controlling the United States, he would not let the states and the counties and the cities have any control. It would all come from him. And that's why we're so blessed that we have our power divided up. And that's why it's important that we keep doing this. And also, of course, take the guns away from the citizens. And the purpose of our Second Amendment is not to go duck hunting. The purpose, according to the Constitution writers, it was not to go duck hunting or deer hunting, which is nice. It's not to go target practicing, or like in my case, I just had this one old gun. I put it on the wall and look at it. I never shoot it, never use it, never intend to, never want to, but it's just an heirloom piece of history with me. And so, you know, having, and it's not for the purpose of even, you know, the purpose of guns in America, according was for protection against a tyrannical government. So if you ever have a Hitler that would come along that would want to take over our people and want to take our guns away, the citizens can perhaps fight back against a tyrannical government. And that was the reason for the Constitution being written that way. The writers was very, very wise. And so with that being in mind, we have our eight bullet points on how Hitler took over Germany. And so thank you so much.